positivity. We could change this whole world with a piano, add a bass, some guitar, grab a beat, and away we go. I'm just a boy with a one-man show. No university, no degree, but Lord knows everybody's talking about exponential growth and the stock market crashing in their portfolios, while I'll be sitting here with a song that I wrote, saying love could change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. I'll paint the picture, let me set the scene. You know the future's in the hands of you and me. So let's all get together. We can.
Why do you want to get baptized? I want to get baptized because of my relationship with God. I want to be able to listen to the teaching. Me quiero usar para caminar más cercano a Dios y quiero también escuchar más cercano a sus enseñanzas. Amén. Adelante.
University, no degree. I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it. Moving so phenomenally. Baby, rock it, so don't stop. Everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine, nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on, all those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Ooh, it's something magical. It's in the air, it's in my blood, it's rushing on. I don't need no reason, don't need control. I fly so high, no ceiling when I'm in my zone. Cause I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop, stop, stop. Under the lights when everything goes. When I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on, all those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Stop the feeling, yeah. So keep dancing. Oh.
Well, welcome. I think people are counting on us recording these meetings and posting them. At least that's what I'm hoping. Thank you for providing us a live audience to do this presentation. Yeah, right. So no, seriously, thank you for coming. We believe strongly, I think that's pretty obvious to everyone at GCA. We believe so strongly in this trip, and we're excited that your babies or your oldest or whichever order they're in, their turn is coming. And so we've got details to share with you. We've got some ways that you can get involved. And our goal, because, well, for a few people here, they're actually interested in the 8 o'clock game tonight. Our goal will be to get you out of here and get home to watch that game. So, yeah.
All right, why don't we pray? Yeah. We'll get started. So, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for just the opportunity to gather together, Lord. And we thank you for, in particular, this group of grade 8s, God, going into grade 9. Students who many have come up through GCA, some who have joined along the way, God. And for each one of them, I just pray a blessing on them tonight as we look at some of the details of this upcoming trip, God. We know it's a long way away in some ways, and it's going to be here right away in other ways. And so I just pray that you would be preparing hearts already, that you would be continuing the work that you have been doing, God, throughout this year and into the summer and into next year, God. As these boys and girls grow up into young men and young women. And so, Lord, we just thank you for this. We pray your blessing over this trip and over the details, God, over all those who are a part of fundraising and planning and putting everything in place, God. We thank you that there's often details that we don't know we'll need, and yet you've gone ahead. And so we ask you to do that again, Lord, and go ahead before us and prepare the way that we'd be able to have just an incredible experience with these students. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, first off is why this trip. It may be obvious, but maybe not. Pastor Dave?
Colleen said she was going to try to get us out of here before 8. So the why is because it's good for your kids. And I was going to walk off and be done with it, but I'll give you a little bit more of the why. I have the privilege of going on all these trips and helping oversee the trip. So this is, I've done 7 trips, I think, now, because even with COVID, we kind of piggybacked in July and then did one this February. The why is really, really simple, actually. It is good for your kids. I really believe that. And some of you have kids that have already gone on the trip, and you would agree with me that it was good for Gabe to be on that trip, even when he tried to run around with a hurt knee and disagreed with us on what was best for him. But the why really is, it's an opportunity for them to experience something that's totally outside of the context of what's normal for them. And we know that it's in those contexts that they're pushed outside of their comfort zone. They're pushed to be more than they think they could be. And it was no more evident than this last trip that we did in February, where it was windy and rainy and cold and miserable. And you guys know your kids. When it's cold and miserable and windy, they don't want to do anything. Yet you put them into this context where it's not about them. It's about accomplishing something that's bigger than themselves. And these kids in the middle, I literally had water running over my feet standing at a chop saw. And these kids didn't care because there was a mission and a vision that was put in front of them and a task that they were a part of. And there's a purpose they're a part of. And students want to be a part of something that's bigger than them. They want to accomplish something bigger than them. And we can talk all we want about how they need to serve, about how they need to love others, but actually experiencing it is a whole different story. The theme verse this year has been Matthew 7:24, and I've used these words over and over this year, that we don't just want to be hearers, we want to be doers of the word. And so this gives our students an opportunity to be doers of the word, to get their hands dirty, and they really do get their hands dirty. It's impossible not to be on the build site and pick up a hammer and nails, a chop saw, use power tools for the first time. And you guys know your kids. Some of them have never hammered a nail. Some of them have never used a power tool. Some of them never picked up a paintbrush. And yet here, they're all on board to do that. And a value we have at our school is to serve through love. And this is part of why we exist as a school. And this is a tangible opportunity for your students to do that. And year after year, I go in with high expectations, and year after year, my expectations are blown away on what God does in the life of our students, on what God does in their hearts, and the aftermath of that. And what we don't want is this to be a one-off trip where that's the be-all and end-all of their spiritual journey. We want this to be a catalyst, and we've seen it be a catalyst for the rest of their life, for them to have a heart to serve one another, to serve others, and realize that God's actually doing something globally and in our own backyard, and that they can be a part of it, and that God is calling them to be a part of it. So really, it's good for your kids. And so I'm thankful that we had over 70 people go this last year, and I'm hopeful that even more will go this next year, and that we'll have the problem of having to fundraise for a 5th house instead of just a 4th. So thank you, parents, for sending your kids, for being involved in supporting us already. And there's a lot more to come, but we're excited to see all of that unravel over this next year.
Thanks, Dave. So we have a video that was prepared. Robin Burnett came along on the trip as our director of media and created a video with the students explaining how the trip impacted them and why the trip. So Dave's just going to run back there, and we're going to watch what the students have to say.
It wasn't real to me until we drove over to the base and were there that first day.
The base was a lot different than I expected it to be. The whole thing, it was just so much different. My expectations were blown away.
That's the accommodations our students will be in.
And there was a large football pitch where we could go and play.
The YWAM base, that was insane. All the seating areas, the lighting, that chapel thing, the onion that we called it.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
How this place started, probably about maybe 30 years ago. A group of people from Los Angeles came down. There was a YWAM base down up in Los Angeles. And they came down and built a home for a family. And it was going to be a one-off. We're going to build a home for this family. We're going to feel good about ourselves. We're going to go home. God's going to love us. Yeah. And the little girl, one of the daughters, I believe it was Andrea Lambert. As they came down, there was a family living in a bus next to where they were building. And this little girl said, "Daddy, can we build a house for that family too?" They came back to Tijuana later on that year and built a home for that family. And the next year they built several homes. And over the last 30 years, they have built probably over 7,000 homes worldwide. And basically, that was all from the suggestion of that one little girl asking her father, "Can we build a home for that family also?"
Before we left, I originally thought all the build sites were going to be right next to each other. So I thought it was going to be 4 houses right next to each other in one big plot of land, not spread out throughout a city.
The roof was garbage bags, and it was just the front was just layered on pieces of just plywood that they'd found.
We went inside the house and they just had 2 beds for 6 people and some shelves with little to no food. They still had so much joy and happiness, even though they cooked outside every day, they slept on a dirt floor.
It was challenging for me to see how some of these families lived. It's tough to see people living like that. That challenged me. So it felt good overall in the end, though, because we got to give them their home.
You hear stories from the grade 9s before, and then the conditions were really bad, but when you see it with your own eyes, it takes it to a different level.
Building the house was kind of harder than I thought.
We are purified. We are hidden in the wounds of Christ. He has paid the price. He has brought us near to behold the glory of the Lord. And so we will not fear through the storm and through the flood.
It was super rainy. Although, like, no one complained, like, no one, like, everyone was working.
Yeah. During the key giving ceremony at the end, I think probably 75% of our group was crying.
I was somebody who did not expect to cry at all at the key ceremony, and then Carla and Dave just started talking, and I just started, like, breaking down.
Giving, like, the keys to family, I was like, I tried not to cry because, like, I was the first one speaking, and I didn't really know how to express myself, so I just, like, did the best I could. I didn't know how to explain to the family how much it, like, changed me to, like, help them. Yeah, I really connected with God on that trip.
Yeah, every night chapel was different. We had a different topic to discuss on. That was an experience in of itself, being able to open up to other people, show others and show God and show yourself what you truly learned during that trip and what you can continue to improve on with Jesus and everything else.
I think the chapels were really cool as well. Like it was kind of different, especially the Passion play on Thursday. I think that was really cool. And then when we were all like by the fire, and then Pastor Dave started talking about like how we should be like all in when it comes to Jesus and stuff like that. I think that was probably one of my biggest highlights.
Every night, me and a bunch of these other people would go sit around this fire pit, and we would just kind of talk about life, and it really helped me, kind of realizing that, yes, you have friends, and they're all there to support you and help you.
Oh, what was the highlight of the trip?
I came to GCA in grade 5. So for 4 years, I went to school with some of these people. I didn't even know much about them. So I made a lot of new friends, basically.
Church was so good. It was cool singing in Spanish, too.
It sounded so much nicer in Spanish.
It was beautiful.
Like,
they had beautiful voices. Like,
exactly.
It was awesome.
Because like they're speaking Spanish and English at the same time, and they're just seeing how like God works through the language was just something really cool. And also 2 people in our grade got baptized, and that was also another really amazing thing to see.
It's interesting to see how faith stays the same across like that great of a distance.
I didn't think much of it as it being a life-changing experience for me as much, but then when I got there and everything had happened, it really was a much bigger deal for me than I would have thought.
Before, like, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, but now I do really want to go into ministry. I feel like God's calling me into working for Him.
I got really emotional during one of the chapels, just thinking about like how privileged we are in this part of the world.
Did it change the way you looked at God?
It did. Yeah. I can see how much the people rely on God in their day-to-day lives in Mexico, and I think maybe I should choose to rely on God more in that way, because He seems to He provided for this family. In this case, He gave them a home.
I feel the need to keep living out the giving and the spreading God's faith.
I really felt Jesus' presence in everything.
When you have God, you can be truly joyful, and that's all you need. Go. Go, because it's such a life-changing opportunity that everything's organized for you. Everything's a community, and like the connections are unreal. And it's just such an opportunity, and if you have it, take it.
And it's definitely a really important stepping stone for your faith.
It was so much bigger of a deal than I thought it would have been.
Through this trip, I noticed God so much in that 1 week, and it actually shocked me, like, how He's always around and always there for me.
Whatever doubts you have, forget them, because this trip is, like, life-changing, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that.
It's changed my whole way of thinking about, like, life itself.
Definitely met my expectations. Everything, from the building, key ceremony, everything else, it was incredible. I got to make an announcement on a tour bus. That was fun.
Awesome. So it's always great to hear from the kids while they're there, and then also as they come back, because I always find it so encouraging too, because even being on some of the trips, you don't see all the things that are happening under the surface, and so to ask them about it later and to hear and understand, oh, God's working even in some of the kids who you don't see it. It's not as outward. And so I'm always so encouraged seeing those videos. So I love that we've been able to put some of that together. The dates are there. So Friday, February 16th to Friday, February 23rd. And that is set over the break, besides the extra Friday there. And we're going to be flying Calgary to San Diego. From there, you can see, hopefully you've had a chance to just peek over the schedule. Did everyone get one of those on the way in? So there's a sample schedule there. And I think this is probably the schedule from last year. Yeah, or it's updated. Oh, it's this year. Okay, so we've got it updated from February, from this year, not next year. That makes sense. And so if you have a look there, if you go to I think on the next slide, we can see how the days are sort of laid out. And so that's in general, we have our travel day arriving there. We take a bus from the airport at San Diego that brings us right to the YWAM base. And so they're great at going across the border, helping students out with what they need to do with their passports, and we're all in our muster groups the whole time going through travel. And so each student has a teacher leader that's with them, and then the YWAM leaders as well are there to help communicate at the border crossing and get across, as they're doing this all the time, bringing groups in. And after that, there's a team training day on the base, and so it's a great chance for the kids to get to know the staff, get to know their group members sometimes too, and be able to just, there's lots of activities and things. You could see the beautiful base there where there's a big soccer pitch, and the accommodations are amazing. And then a church day. So on the Sunday, head out into the community and travel to several different churches that are connected to YWAM, and so they're bringing groups in all the time. And often it's great. They'll ask, we want some of you guys to share your testimony or to share. And so there's students who are sometimes even sharing in those churches on those days, followed by our 3 build days. And so that's the amount of time it takes to put the house up and get it all together. On the 3rd day is where the key ceremony happens, and they hand it over, and there's some opportunities to go and buy groceries and other things for the family, and it's a pretty special day. And then the ministry day is dependent on the different connections that YWAM has there. So we've gone to orphanages before, we've gone to seniors' homes, and there's a chance there for ministry to take place where the students are taught some of the ways that they can be involved in that ministry that day. And then we're flying back on Friday the 23rd.
So a lot of times families say, well, why there? I'm not comfortable with my child going to Mexico. We've been part of working with, we call it YWAM, stands for Youth with a Mission. We've been working with this organization since the very first day. We have a long-standing relationship with them. I believe we're at 29 years working with Youth with a Mission. It's no easy task taking a large group of 14-year-olds to a cross-cultural experience with a hands-on activity. We really find it useful for our students to have something that they're physically working at. And so the house build is beautiful. And so we feel very safe and secure going to the Tijuana base. The YWAM calls their home centers base. So we go to the base there. You can see it's a beautiful facility. And we have long-standing relationships with the personnel on the bases. This base has lots of things going on, one of which is having teams come in and build houses, and having 14-year-olds come in and build houses. As you can imagine, that's not common either. And so we love that relationship and the way we can work with them. They are well aware of our things that we like to have in place for safety and for risk mitigation. They completely respect it and have it arranged for us ahead of time. They're excellent at ferrying us across the border, helping us in all of that process. The facilities themselves are outstanding. The facilities have changed drastically. There is great sanitation, and we're even going to say you can flush the toilet paper down, which if you've been very far in Mexico without staying at the top 5-star resort, that is a unique thing. Great sleeping accommodations for our students, excellent food service, and they have the capacity for our group. Very few organizations, well actually we're not aware of any other organization that has the capacity, safe capacity, for the number of students that we take. They've got great facilities to hang out and play. The soccer field is, I don't know, I guess I can't say state of the art, but it's a beautiful soccer pitch that the students hang out on and just sit and talk, play football, run around, play soccer, all kinds of things. The YWAM base also has an excellent relationship in the community. They've been working in this area for over 35 years. They've been building houses there for over 30 years, and so they just have this excellent relationship. I was on the very first mission trip, and in those days, the base was not all that we're talking about. And there was a time when we decided, well, maybe we should go somewhere else that might be safer. And we went initially to Costa Rica, and it was not at all safer, and the logistics were very, very complex, and they couldn't accommodate our size. So after 2 years, we headed to the Dominican Republic, and they could accommodate our growing size, sort of, until we showed up with 70. Our last time in the Dominican Republic, we had 70 students. And their version of accommodating us was not something that we were satisfied with. I think Mr. Barrett was on that trip. He's shaking his head. We won't go into the stories now. But if you were on any of these trips and then you saw this facility, it's like, oh yeah, night and day difference. And Wendy's going to come and share. She can talk about it a little bit. I take very seriously, as principal, as administrator, the safety. My neck's on the line. And I actually won't take your students back to those places. I won't do it. Someone else can do it maybe, but I won't do it. And I have not come across another place that I feel comfortable and safe, and also that it's going to have the impact. This place is just, even the way the YWAM staff sets up the week and interacts and walks us through all of this is so effective. They press into making connections with our students and pointing to them to Jesus and just modeling incredible servant heart leadership as they do their life on the base. The build teams, I should tell you about the build teams just briefly. We hope to have 100 students on the trip. So then we would have 5 teams, but you know, we're okay to take 4 teams if we have to. So every one of our teams will be assigned to a team of 5 long-term YWAMers on staff, 3 builders, and these people have been building houses there for years and years, and they're expert. They can build the house without us, but they have a great gift of coming alongside our 14-year-olds and saying, here, let me show you what to do, and you go do it, you know. And they also have a great gift of connecting with the families and just modeling for us. It's not about getting that house up and whoa. It's, well, if you're with Dave's team, it's kind of like that, but more about, hey, let's talk with the family. Let's get to know them a little bit. Let's play around. Let's have some fun. Oh, yeah, and we're building a house. So that's why we go to Tijuana and why we work with the Youth with a Mission. We also believe really strongly in having this cross-cultural experience for our students. We love that we can get our students who live, our kids, even those parents that are sacrificing much to be at this school, they still live a very privileged life when we go down there in comparison. And you heard it over and over, and this is what we hear all the time. The students right away pick up, these families have nothing. and yet they have joy. And it's bewildering to us, right? Like our kids pick up on that right away. And so I think that cross-cultural experience is so vital. They spoke about the language, the beauty of being in different places and hearing English spoken and Spanish spoken, being in a Spanish church and hearing worship in Spanish. So it's just, that's why we do this. I think I've kind of covered why not a national trip. I've kind of addressed that, really. So that's why we go there. We've already talked about the schedule. You want to talk about this one? Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So we're looking at right from, when do we put them into those teams and get them started on preparation?
Is it like December, Dave?
Yeah, by December, we've got them in their teams, and they start to meet regularly throughout the week to pray, to talk about the experience, to already start to anticipate what is going to be happening on the trip. And that part of it we found is so important, just to be able to be, I think of it as like filling up the storehouses of prayer ahead of time before we're going, and creating that anticipation, but also just encouraging them and giving a chance to build relationships. And so students start to meet right away in December, get in their groups, and then begin to talk with the team leaders that will be on the trip as well. So they'll be with those teachers as their muster leader, as their team leader throughout the trip. And we just find that such a valuable part of this is the preparation ahead, not just jumping into something and expecting them to know what to do, but lots of time to ask questions, lots of time to, once we have a picture of the family, of who they're going to be building for, to begin to pray for them as well. And to a huge part of missions, as many of you guys probably know, is that preparation, right? To know, okay, some practical things too. What are some Spanish phrases that we can talk about? How do we help to be not just wandering around in a different culture, but to be embracing it and to be a part of what's going on? And so we take that. That's really important to us too. And they go, so this is really neat. So we have them also come into the elementary classrooms, and so lots of these kids would have had this happen when they were in, all throughout elementary, is have the grade 9s get buddied up with a class who's going to be praying for them throughout. So each class has 1 or 2 grade 9s that they're linked with and praying for. And I can remember when I, way back in the day, I taught grade 2 here, and I can remember on that, sitting with a group of grade 2s and having the grade 9s come and talk about the mission trip. And I actually got to go on the mission trip that year because I was coaching grade 9 volleyball. They needed someone to coach, and I had jumped in, and so I said, I'm going to throw in my hat to try to go on this trip. And so that was pretty neat, and it was cool seeing them come into the room, and so I had this connection. And I remember telling the grade 2s, like, before you know it, that's going to be you guys. And so not the trip in February, but previous trip we did in June, or July, I guess it was, that group of grade 9s was the group of grade 2s that I was teaching, and I got to go on the trip with them as well. And so it was a neat, just full circle moment for me of going, I remember telling you guys, you're going to blink, and that's going to be you guys going on the trip. And then it happened. And I remember cluing into that at one point and thinking, this is so cool. It's just neat the way God work some of those things out, and it was just a neat thing. So building that anticipation is, as you guys probably know, kids are talking about this all the way through and thinking about, that grade 9 trip, and not that we want to hype up just an experience and say, that's the only place you can meet God or anything like that, but we integrate it into what we do at GCA. And so it does become, in some ways, this pinnacle in some ways of something that they're looking forward to, but we're wanting it to not be something that it ends there, where it continues on. And that's the beauty of, we love being able to do the trip in February as well, because then they can come back and share their experiences. And so we've seen that with the grade 9s this year, coming back and sharing through videos, but also through talking to classmates and talking to other grades about that experience. It just begins to build that excitement going forward for the new trip.
Yeah, and one thing that we're really trying to build, it takes a while, and COVID hit us pretty hard there in community efforts that we had going, but we're really trying to build up the idea that this is a school project. This isn't a grade 9 project. This is a school project, so we love that the younger students are hearing about it. The grade 9s actually just this morning presented to the elementary students and shared stories about their trip. And they were fully engaged because they've been meeting these kids and praying for them. And so we're trying to find ways also we can't do this trip, even financially, with the support of the community. And we don't want it to be about, it's these grade 9 families. We want the school to understand this is what we do. And this is just a small privilege of being able to love on these families that we'll be building for, and we all get to be part of it. So we love that connection with the buddies. So speaking of ways for the community to get involved, the trip at this point, we are setting a tentative price of per student of $2,400. It was $2,300 last year, but with costs and everything, we're finding that we're going to have to make it $2,400. I'll explain details about that. Grade 9 tuition, which I think you've already signed off on, it has a $600 piece built into that. So if you're paying tuition for next year, that you're already paying $600 installment on there. And then there's all kinds of fundraising opportunities. We also need to build 4 houses. And so we need to raise funds for that as well. And so some of the fundraising opportunities are just for your student, for their individual funds to go on the trip, to pay the cost of their trip. And then some of the fundraising, it's really kind of bringing everyone together, and it's to raise those funds for the house. The house works out to, and we're dealing with US dollars, and so depends on the day and depends on the politics of the time. But we expect the houses to be $15,000 per house. So the school donates one house, the cost of one house, and so we're looking at raising 4 houses, so we can have 100 students go, but depending on the number, we'll be raising for 3 houses or 4 houses. Now, I'm so excited because we have a great group of parents in this grade who are excellent at getting involved in many, many ways. I'm looking all over, and I'm thinking of the lists that we've been pouring over. And one of those, or 2 of those people that have jumped in to take the lead on the fundraising is Wendy Nielsen and Candice Shunrock. Wendy Nielsen was on the very first YWAM trip along with myself, and it quite simply changed her life, right? So she's going to come up and share some exciting ideas about fundraising and just to help you catch a little bit of the vision for what this can be like and share her passion for the trip. She is a believer.
Yeah, I absolutely want to see this whole grade go. I think it's an awesome grade of students. Every year has their own, flavor's not the right word, of how that grade is, but this grade 8 group is beautiful. And I just see such a kindness in these students. So I would love to see the whole grade go. When I went, there were maybe 25% that didn't go the first trip, because we also had the FAC use that they could come. And those that didn't go, they kind of missed it. And I don't want to say that to add pressure to anyone, because obviously everyone has to make this decision for themselves, but it is an amazing trip. Every one of us that has gone, it is impacted for more than just that trip. So I think the trip starts now, once the decision is made, if you're sending your student on it. And I think it's a family decision, right? So it's not just the students that get to be a part of this. This was our Mexico year. It's the whole family. I remember when Dave Smith came and he pitched to us in the library pit about building houses. And Dave Yang and I didn't talk before this, but as Dave was saying, yeah, we give an actual way for students to do something instead of just saying, you should really make a difference in your world. And that feels very vague, but this is so tangible for them. They get to go down and actually put their words and these Bible verses and these lessons that they've been learning over these years and their lives into action. So it's beautiful. So what a worthy investment of our time. here are some fun fundraising opportunities.
Let me just interrupt. I'm not sure if everyone realizes this list of fundraising items, it is the second last page in your handout there.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's good. I should probably follow the order on that because mine's probably different. So, we are going to be doing an online auction again this year, but because we like the community idea, we're also going to tie in that pancake breakfast that was such a hit last year. So the auction will be connected with that, and you'll learn more about that later. But we do need some more people to sign up and help organize all the auction items. So if that is something that interests you, Candace is going to lead up our online auction. Yay, Candace! I'm super excited about T-shirt Fridays. I think you might be too, but GCA has so graciously allowed us that we will do a fundraiser. So if we're going to design a shirt, so we need a committee to help with, or some parents to help designing that and putting the orders through, but you can order the T-shirts in June, and then in the next year, on Fridays, the entire school can wear these T-shirts on Friday if they buy one, and all proceeds go towards these houses. So if you don't buy a T-shirt, you get to wear a uniform, and that's fine too, but this is a wonderful way. The tournament, we're also going to do something new this year, tournament concessions. So when GCA hosts, we're going to get parents to rotate through and volunteer a day, and students will put them on a list of rotating through a day of these tournaments, and all proceeds will go towards that. So we do need a committee head for that one. And we also need someone who's eloquent with writing and loves to write, that would be willing to look into some grants and help write to apply for those. So if you feel your heart tugging on that one. Bottles, again, we're going to do the bottles drives that have been going on these last years. So there would be a need for a committee head for that one to do a rotation for the scheduling parents and students every other month during the school year, and then also to drop off the bottles afterwards and bring the deposit to GCA. And prayer. If you're feeling that you would love to head up a prayer focus for when the team is down there and sending out updates or getting together, or how you see that, that's another way to serve. But there's lots of opportunities, and I think it's awesome to see our kids see us do this too, right? Not just like it's all you, but that we can all do this together and as a community to serve. I don't know, I could talk all about the trip, but.
Thank you, Wendy.
Awesome.
That is
Thanks,
awesome.
Wendy.
Yeah, so the Google form, we were going to do a clipboard, and we thought, well, having something right there is great, but maybe we could tie in the technology. So the Google forms went out to all the grade 8 parents looking for, even if you just want to say, yeah, I'll help out in this area, and then Wendy and Candace will get that all organized. So please pay attention to that form. Hopefully we shared it right. That's always an ongoing challenge. And then I want to draw your attention to the individual fundraising. Check it out. Make sure you're making use of it. I believe the fundraisers, the team fund, the MEET fundraiser, is still going. I think that closes in a week or so. I think it's May, early May. I should have those dates. But so there's still an opportunity to use that fundraiser, and some of it is so excellent. It's like just filling the freezer with products that we're already going to buy. And for some of the products, there's a great, what do you call that, math teacher? You know, the cost and the profit. What's that? You know, margin. Thank you very much. Margin.
That's the one.
There's a great margin. The Apple fundraiser, we have this every year. People are like, oh man, I missed the apples. The apples are like candy around here. Anyone who knows Davison apples, that's the reputation around the school. It's the candy apples. They're just so sweet. I sound like I'm just using superlatives. No, they really have a super reputation. So even if you're buying them for yourselves or can think of somebody that might be excited about jumping in on that, the margins are great on that. We started for the first time last year, rather than doing Christmas greens, we'd had troubles with it. We thought, well, let's try Purdy's. Unbelievable, the profits for the students for Purdy's. Families raised a lot of money, and there's bonuses for the school. So we got a few $1,000s to put right on the house fund just because so much Purdy's chocolate had been sold by families. So it's a great one as well. And then you see the others, the spring basket as well. So be thinking about those to help ease the burden of that $2,400 cost.
With Purdy's, my son's got a dairy allergy, and they have the best dairy-free chocolate, or like it's vegan because it had, to make it dairy-free, and it's like that's the place to go. So if you know people with allergies, get them on it. It's good chocolate. All right, risk mitigation. All right, the fun part. So we stay in touch with the base because they're in touch with local authorities, and they know last year in particular, as there were different areas in Mexico that experienced different levels of unrest and things. It's such a large country, right? And so you could hear about something going on and think, oh no, like is the trip at risk? Like there's something happening, and it's kind of like being like, well, there's unrest in Canada somewhere. There's something going on in Ottawa, and we're sitting out here. Well, that's nowhere near us. And so it was, but we don't always know that, right? And so to be in touch with the base, they monitor the safety and they keep us apprised of any travel advisories and what it's like in their region and in their area. The base itself is gated with security, and so it's very secure in that sense. And anytime that we're out in the community, the leaders there know the areas to go to and the areas to avoid, and even the times of day to be out. And so we report our updates to the board of directors to keep them appraised as the trip approaches, and we talk through everything that we're hearing back from the base. And so last year in particular, as we would hear of different advisories, we'd get in touch with the leaders at the base, and they would say, no, actually in this area we're all good, but we'll keep you up to date. And so there's an ongoing communication that happens. And that's the biggest way that we get the right information on the ground, not just something you might hear in the news and think, oh no, I wonder what's going on. And so we go through all the proper channels to make sure that safety is the most important thing when we go down in that sense, right? If there was ever a risk that we felt it was not safe for students, we wouldn't go in that sense, right? But we trust the leaders there, and we go through all the proper channels to make sure that's mitigated.
Yeah, so the final piece of this is we need to start planning. We have a number of seats booked on that airplane. We need to be thinking through, are we building for 4 teams? Are we building for 5 teams? So we need to start to get a sense of intention from our families. I know there's probably, you may have more questions. You may want to find out more information. We have a lot of information. I think there's 2 pages on our parent portal on our website. One is the blog from last year. It's pretty informative. You'll see tons of pictures and video from every day. You'll see the blog post. What did we do that day? So it might give you even more of a sense of what the trip is like than the 8-minute video from the students talking about it. There's fundraising material on that page. There's a link to the YWAM website. We will have all this material that we've handed out tonight on the parent portal, and so some of those links are live. You can go right to the Youth with a Mission website and get a little more familiar. There's all kinds of things going on that base, discipleship training schools, University of the Nations, a couple of other schools going on, but then you will also see Mission Adventure and Homes of Hope. We are a Mission Adventure team building a home of hope. Mission Adventures, their week-long programs to work with teens coming in to the base. So that's the part on their website you'd want to see. We also have every year, Sarah Perez, grade 8 mom, comes and generously offers her time to provide recommendations for travel vaccines. And so we even have her presentation from last year up there just to begin to give parents a sense of what should they be thinking about. She will give a presentation for the grade 8 parents as well during next school year. We will talk in a little bit more detail again in the fall. We'll have another grade 9 parent meeting by that point, and we'll be talking about high schools, registration, but we'll also give a little more detail on this trip. So that's mainly it, but I want to draw your attention to the last page, and that's the intention form. So it has the basics there and the timeline. It has the payment amount. We ask typically for, like we say, there's the $600 deposit that's in your tuition. By December 1st, we like to then have it to a balance of $1,500, and then the remaining total ahead of the trip, so February 3rd. If there's any problem with finances, I hope a lot of people will be listening to this recording online. Any problem with finances, please come talk to us. Leiden Price, our Director of Finances, is always willing to make some kind of accommodations, different payment schedule, things like that. We really want to be able to see everybody come on this trip and nobody check out right away saying we just can't afford it. So please come talk to us. We can keep complete confidentiality. Send me an email, send Leiden Price an email, whoever you're comfortable with. So this intention form, it's not a commitment, but it gives us a strong sense of, how many are we planning for. So we're asking for this form to come back before the end of the school year. So June 16th, basically the last Friday of a somewhat normal week of school, so June 16th. So that should give you lots of time to ask more questions, email me, check out stuff on the parent portal. So we can open it for questions.
The only other thing, I'm just reading at the bottom, so it got me thinking, be thinking about passports ahead of time. And so just make sure that have we said this? No, I don't think so. Just check for those expiry dates so that you know ahead of time that it's coming up, so it's not that mad dash at the end waiting to see if it's going to come in. And so just be looking at those.
Especially how long it's taking these days.
Yeah, it can be kind of crazy. So
we should also mention again, depending on, I'm hoping that people are listening to or will be listening to this. If your child's passport is not U.S. or Canadian, then we'll probably have to apply for a travel visa into the U.S. And so, again, those applications have to start early. So just be thinking about that. There's plenty of time for it, and we can write letters if you need it to help in the application, but please have it on your radar. So if there's any important question that the whole group should hear, great, but otherwise just come on up or email, give a call, drop by the school office. Wendy? No, the regulations have changed. You used to have the passport good for another 6 months after your return date, and that has changed. So we just need it to be good until February 24th. Yeah. All right. Well, yes. Yeah, we've been building homes. They're in the colonias, and so they're way on the outskirts for the most part. Even the one that was surrounded in more of the community. It was still on the outskirts of Tijuana. So we take a road. We actually head south. Our base isn't in Tijuana. Our base is near more of a town called Rosarito. It's almost now a suburb of Tijuana. We head south past Rosarito and take this highway that outskirts Tijuana, typically the last few years. And so they're often these colonias. We were like out on the hill with only like a few houses around us, and yet Pastor Dave's build team and one of the other build teams, we could see their house. We couldn't walk there, but we could see their house, and then our fourth house was right on the edge of the city in that corner. But so they're drivable, but very rarely within walking distance of each other. But they're in the colonias, so they're in quite and YWAM does not take us into unsafe zones of Tijuana, and we never go out after dark. We're always on base before dark, which is, I think, important probably in that area. Yes, Pam? The dates on it? Yes. The slide with the dates on it, Dave? That's not on the info, is it? Oh, yeah. The mic is still on the page. The dates are on your intention form. Yeah, they're on the intention form too. So you have it there. Yeah, the last page. Good. All right. Well, that gives our Oiler fans 6 minutes to zip home.
Hopefully it's a long national anthem.
Thank you very much, everybody, and I'm really excited. It's so fun even preparing for this and getting the students excited, and just all of us as people in the community coming together. So, thank you.